Hey Ankit, thank you so much for joining Samyak and I to the Thinking Out Loud podcast. We are super stoked to have you here with us, and thank you so much for taking out time on a Sunday afternoon.
Thanks so much for inviting me, guys. Looking forward to this conversation.
Right. So, Ankit, like just to start off with, we won't waste time and get right into it, right? So, your journey has been, phenomenal. Like starting from Narsi Munji in Bombay, then cracking IIM Indore, then moving to Bank of America, and then starting inside IIM, right? So, could you just highlight for the audience, like how that entire journey transcended, I mean, you've given tech talks about it as well, right? But just to give some context to the listener as to how has that entire journey panned out.
Sure. So I was a commerce graduate, which in hindsight now seems like I mean, it was a correct decision in many ways, but also probably not the most forward-looking decision in many ways, because I think a lot of the skills that you pick up during the course are probably not as important, or they can be learned later on in life as well. Whereas I feel like there are a lot of other more interesting disciplines that are there out there. What was great, however, was that I got into a great college, and that helped me get exposure to people who were constantly outperforming. So Narsimonji is one of those, or at least used to be one of those few places in Bombay where you would have the Western region topper for various competitive exams, the India topper for various competitive exams, all coming from that college. And uh, it was fascinating to see those people not just top, the CA, CS. There was another kind of a CFA institute back then. Not just those exams, but also at the same time, be super active for all kinds of extracurricular activities, in college, and also do well there. So for me, that was the big shift, because I don't think I would have pushed myself so much if I was not there, right? And that's when I also got introduced to the various levels of games that people play. So, when you are in school, often the only thing you think about is getting to a good college. And then when you get into a good college, you are only really just thinking about, okay, I'll graduate and, maybe get a job and then see what happens to me, right? But I think that fire of or hunger of wanting to do more, uh, I guess it was always there, but then it kind of got the expression in Narsimonji College. So I think for me, a lot of the learning was outside the classroom always, and that was, I think, great. So one of the advantages of being in a commerce college is that the course work is not that hectic, and that allows you to do a lot of other things as well. I also pursued chartered accountancy on the side. I also cleared CA Inter, and honestly, I hated it. I mean, it just does not fit my temperament at all, right? So, uh, very clear that I was not meant to be an accountant, and so I left that and started pursuing CAT. Didn't make it the first time round. The second time around, I think I was much better prepared, and then scored a very good percentile, and was really looking forward to get into IIM Ahmedabad only. For some reason, I was fixated with that at that age, and that did not happen, and I was really disappointed. Uh, but that was, I think, again, just being very amateur in thinking back then. I think I should have, in hindsight, again, been more grateful about the opportunity that I got to get into even IIM Indore. But I think when you are in your early 20s, I was like 21 then, you feel like, how can I be anything but the best, right? And also, actually, uh, now I look back and I realize that actually the people who get into specific schools are not necessarily the best alone. Also because selection criteria of various places are different, and what you have to offer and what a particular institute is looking for could be really really different as well. So again, I think that entire episode, I wasted a lot of my brain cells agonizing over it, but it was a really stupid waste of time. I think it was awesome that I got into IIM Indore, and then I think once I accepted that, I really loved my campus life and the friends I made. Again, learned a lot outside the classroom because by then I think I had become less of an academic student. You know what I mean? Like there are people who are really like who pursue wanting to get ranks and be gold medalists, be on the dean's list, etc. I was never one of those. It didn't even excite me. I never wanted to be that. Maybe I wouldn't even have been good enough to be that, right? Like, so the other thing is, I don't even claim that if I had worked super hard, I would have necessarily even been in the top 10 or whatever. It's a different thing. I did not even ever aspire to be that. Uh, what was very clear in this entire journey from college to IIM was that entrepreneurship is the thing for me. So a lot of people get into entrepreneurship because they have an idea or they stumble upon something. For me, wanting to be an entrepreneur was very clear, right? So some people like me became entrepreneurs because we wanted to become entrepreneurs, not because a particular idea excited them. The fact that InsideIIM.com was the route towards that is probably slightly serendipitous. But if it was not InsideIIM.com, it would have been some other startup. Like that was very, very clear always. Also, my background, like I'm a Gujarati boy, with a lot of exposure to the stock markets early on in life. So again, I don't think I understood all of that very well. Like, it's just that back in mid 2000s when I was in college, there was a real bull market in India, and the world of finance was exploding. Investment banking was like the shits, and markets roles were the shits. And honestly, for me, it seemed like you know, um, so superficially, बहुत सारा knowledge था about all of these things. So I felt like, yeah, this is the thing to be, right? So which is why even and I ended up getting into a bank, not necessarily what I was probably best suited for. But then I'm also one of those guys who would easily get attracted by what I read in popular media. And if you've ever seen all the various, conversations cafes that we do at Inside Am, you'll realize that everybody talks about how economic times shaped them or some popular media that shapes them. I think I was no different to that extent. So, I mean, right from wanting to become Sachin Tendulkar to, wanting to dance like the superstars of Bollywood. I mean, I would get influenced by all of that, right? So it was no surprise that then I got influenced by, okay, who are the people who are making money, and then you would read salaries of people who got into B schools, and then you would read about who are the people who are uh, getting attention. So, but entrepreneurship, I think my kida for wanting to be an entrepreneur preceded that. So I started off wanting to be an entrepreneur even before startups became cool in India, and I had a very different journey. I mean, a lot of people today at the age of 19, 20, on a whim or an idea are able to raise like $5 million, $10 million, easily. And it's awesome for India. It's awesome for this country. But back then, for me, it was such an alien concept. Like venture capital funding, क्या होता है वो भी समझ में नहीं आता था, right? So, and whether it even made sense, and like again, I'm a little old school, so for me, equity is something that you keep very close to your heart, and you don't easily dilute, etc. Right now, again, you could argue both ways that that's such a stupid thing to think early on, right? Like, why would you value equity? Uh, I mean, 100% of something that is valued zero is still zero, right? Like, what is the point of that? You might rather have 2% of something that is $1 billion. So there are a lot of arguments for or against, various philosophies that are there. But clearly, I started off much earlier, and hence my uh, thought process around building a company was also very old school, and hence I was from day one thinking about which I need to be profitable from day one, and that's essentially how I've kind of always thought about business. And it's only very recently that we've raised money, like literally 6 months back is when the first time that we've raised money ever. And yeah, so obviously the trajectory of the company will have to change now from here on. But back then, I mean, I started, I went to Bank of America in 2011, and around the same time, like you guys have this passion project. I mean, for me, InsideIIM was also a passion project which I started back then. And so the other things, how these, dots kind of join are that it's so clear now when you look back that what I was really good at was, writing and content. Like that essentially is what I feel was my skill back then. Today, maybe again, I think formats are changing very quickly and the way people express is very different. So I don't know if, personally, I am as good at it as, so for example, getting stuff viral on Facebook in 2011 was something that I think I understood, or people that I worked with understood. Can I do it today? I don't think so. Right? It's a very different ecosystem today, because that time it was a very niche kind of an audience that used to be even on Facebook in the first place. And then within that small community of people, yeah, you would easily get stuff shared, etc. So uh, technology was never a strong suit. Like I was not trained in it. But you cannot build a business without being digital. That was very clear also very early on, and hence the idea was that okay, within the content space, publishing something online was the route towards trying to do something different. And then that's how Inside I Am was born, because if you notice, there are a few important decisions in your life, right? Like for example, who you get married to, which house do you decide to live in, um, how do you manage your finances, etc. Right now, at least back then, I felt, in fact, I still feel that the amount of literature available for people to make all these decisions, I think there is lots of support around something as basic as getting married. There is a lot of support around financial stuff. Should I rent a house, buy a house? How do I plan for retirement? Like there are so many financial products that are available. But for some reason, careers and what do I do with my life is a largely unexplored question even today. You ask a 22-year-old today, what will you do? And the thing is that the person will always talk about some outcomes or goals that he or she wants, which are financial, status related. It's incredible to me that people spend more than 50% of their time, at their workplace on most occasions, uh, and they don't think about why is it that I'm doing what I'm doing. Uh, I think even today, despite the fact that there is a lot more awareness about these things, even today, you walk into any office, and now since we are remote, you walk into any meeting online and you ask people, why is it that you do what you do? And often the answer is shocking. And I can understand that if there is a constraint at home where you have no option but to take up a job and you get whatever comes your way. But there are so many people from absolutely the top tier universities who educated in that, and they have very little clue about why they are doing what they are doing. So I think that there was a space back then, because I mean I experienced it during my MBA days, that I mean the way placements take place and the way people decided where they wanted to work just did not have any kind of a theory or science. Like I would even go to the extent and say that not everyone even went for the highest compensation job always, right? So so it's been a mystery since then, and I think for me it was first important that okay, let's give people. So at least back in 2011 when I graduated, when people went out of campus to get to a job, 80% of them did not know what they're going to do on their job. Like you could say that, oh, I am going to be a equity sales guy, or oh, I'm going to be a transaction banker, or I'm going to be a assistant brand manager, or I'm going to be part of a leadership program, or I'm going to be part of some general management program somewhere, right? And you ask them, okay, so what is your expectation? What is the kind of work that you will do? And I'm pretty sure that ratio would probably have improved a little. It's not necessarily going to be very great, but back then I knew that 85% of them had no clue what they were doing. Right? Even people who came with experience had absolutely no clue what their job is going to look like. And the number of people who I know who like it's like a career happened to them by accident, and then they've now just ever since just been there, and they never thought that okay, we should step back, understand, right? So there was a content gap there, which is what Inside IIM tried to fill early on. First, we just started with something very simple like, okay, what are the roles that are offered on various campuses? And let's explain those roles properly to people. Also, that gives some transparency around, okay, if Goldman Sachs is hiring, what exactly is, does the role on a particular campus, is it the same as it is, provided elsewhere? So, it was for a very small group of people, but I think for some reason, I mean, a lot of people seem to like it and they started commenting on it, sharing it, etc. And then it became viral. And so for a year, I think there were these bouts of virality that happened. And then I was like, okay, fuck it, maybe this is what I need to really, let's just start the entrepreneurial journey with this. So I quit my job at Bank of America and then got into this full time. And uh, yeah, and now what, it's been 10 years. I've just been doing this since July 2012 is when I quit. And since then, I've been doing this. And a lot of people ask me that, why are you still doing this? Or that, um obviously, there are so many companies that have started after, when we started, and they've all done so well, etc. Relatively. Not that we haven't done well, but there is. Uh, like for example, there are so many companies within the education and career space that are started in 2015, 17, 19, and would probably, at least on paper, even be valued far more than what we do. But honestly, for me, I won't say that those questions or those thoughts don't cross my mind, but I think fundamentally what I know about myself is that for me, entrepreneurship means freedom. So the ability to do what you want to do when you want to do is what excites me the most. And I actually now gone beyond the stage where how much my company is valued matters so much to me. I think it's now just about creating more impact. Um, you know, like for example, about 70% of every cat taker in the last 10 years has used Inside IIM, at least once. More than 95% of people on most of the top MBA campuses over the last 5-7 years, would have been our users at some point of time. And then I think the content explosion that has happened on YouTube recently, I think on any given day between 50,000 to 1 lakh people watch, the videos that we have. And our videos are like anywhere between 20 minutes to, 40 minutes long. And people put in a lot of time, listening to it. Um, and make career decisions which are much better, get inspired, motivated, etc. So a lot of these things also um, gives a lot of satisfaction, because that's like a body of work that we have done and kept, and that keeps helping people year after year. All the content which has been created over the years, and then now obviously with Altuni we've reached a different kind of uh, satisfaction with people actually getting jobs and internships after doing our programs, and making their career dreams come true, which is a very very different sort of satisfaction. So yeah, I mean, I think broadly that's how this journey has been. But I would, if somebody asks me why do you continue to do it, or why do you do it, I would just say that freedom is the number one reason. At a very selfish personal level, I feel like entrepreneurship gives you a lot of freedom to express yourself, and my kind of a personality is best suited doing that. I think being part of a larger setup may not suit my kind of a person, and it doesn't matter. Maybe you get to do a lot more impactful work in a larger organization. That's also possible. So I don't want to say that you can only create impact by being an entrepreneur, like, right? But for me, I would struggle in that kind of a setup. Is what I've learned about myself. And I did work for 14 months in probably one of the world's biggest brands, and I also traveled to the US as a part of the bank and saw the setups there, and I realized that's not where I'm ever going to thrive in. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, it's a great place. I would still recommend anybody who gets a job at Bank of America. It's a fantastic place to work. But for me, it will never work out. It's just too regimented, and I'm a bit of uh, a misfit, to put it mildly. Yeah.
So I think you've given a lot of insights in just this one question, and I think there are a few things which I really picked up from there. So one thing I picked up was, Ankit, that people don't know what job they are going to do even after choosing. Like, if I want to become an investment banker, maybe I don't know why I want to be one, or maybe if I want to become an equity research analyst, I don't know why. I just feel that the market is running behind those type of roles, and I just want one of those. So I think you excellently depicted that. So coming on to again doing MBA, right? So a lot of parents maybe also are involved here, but want their child to go to the best colleges, like maybe an Ivy League or IIMs or ISBs kind of colleges. So is it just for the brand name that they are doing this? Because I don't know. I feel the curriculum across all MBA schools might be same, but it's just the brand, maybe the professors, the way they teach, and obviously the network of students that they build, right? The intellectual levels of maybe all the students out there, that's more important than the normal curriculum of MBA that's taught in the school. So what's your take on that? Is it true to some extent that it's more related to how it's taught and the networking that you have rather than the curriculum?
See, I think there are very few institutions in the country where the curriculum differentiates the place. Very few. Um, I don't want to name them because we have a lot of partnerships with various schools, so I just don't want it to become a conflict of interest anywhere. So I'm not going to name them, but it is true that there is a status and networking decision that is made when choosing universities, whether it is in India or abroad, even today. Is it necessarily the worst thing? I don't know, because it depends on how you define what education means. Is education just the curriculum, or is education interaction with peers, or is education what competition opportunities does a particular university give you, right? So in my head, curriculum is an important but not the be all and end all of a decision when somebody decides which university to get in, because I think we need to relook at what learning really means. Does learning mean that you sit in a particular place and consume content, retain it, and then you know uh, regurgitate that in some exam, or is learning a dialogue or a conversation between great minds who give each other uh, different perspectives to think, or is education working in a team towards a common goal, right? I think once you start defining it that way, you realize that um, it completely changes, uh, and which is why I think that curriculum is one part of the larger whole. I, I do feel like having a great curriculum but not having great networking opportunities doesn't really work. Probably still works to have a more mediocre curriculum but have better networking opportunities. And I mean, that's my personal view. You may or may not agree, but it's, I would say, uh, a institution, whether online or offline, if it is able to give you experiential learning of some sort, I would value that much higher. But the network and the connections that you make is like gold. And I would say that, yeah, it's fine to just choose a particular school just for that. There's no harm in thinking that way. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Fair enough. I think that really, sums up the entire conversation between networking and curriculum. So, Ankit, like, I would just want to shift gears, right, and move more to the skills bit, right? Because I also believe that Inside IIM now is building alt uni, wherein a lot of focus is now being put on that skill set. So I just wanted to understand at the onset that the skills, say, that you learned at a Bank of America, or the skills that you learned from the stock market by being exposed to it at a very young age, how are those being used by you in your current entrepreneurial stint? Because at the face of it, for a commoner, there would be like, there is no correlation between the two. But I'm sure you would have gotten some roots out of that. So how has that come into play over here?
So I think I was in a sales role at Bank of America, and that again primed me towards the initial monetization on Inside IIM is being B2B. I mean, we continue to have that business, and that's been our major driver. So that sales orientation helped. Just having the confidence to um, go into any meeting and pitch and get it done. So we've got some of the biggest brands in the world to work with us, uh, you know, through our B2B business. And I would say a lot of those routes are, say when I was doing sponsorship pitching, when I was in my college festival, or whether it was when I was at Bank of America, trying to meet clients. So sales is probably the most essential skill that I've picked up from my various alma maters, which is also then connected to networking, because the ability to build authentic relationships with people helps in. Uh, you would be shocked how much a good relationship provides you in the long run. It can sometimes be a game changer. Like, one person that you met 15 years back and worked with that person for maybe 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, and then after 15 years, the same person, joins your company, wants to work with you, and uh, that experience back then feeds into the trust that you have now. Uh, Somebody who's worked with you previously somewhere has a great reputation about you in their mind, and then when you go out fundraising, they will back you and say, no, you know what, this guy, I worked with this guy, and I know that this guy is genuine. We should definitely back this guy. Right now, I feel like these are very important things, and I personally give a lot of credit to my early learnings, both in college, you know, and at IIM Indore, because I think wherever there have been authentic relationships, like genuinely, without ever thinking that I don't know how this is going to be useful to me in the future, but just that authentic relationship, even if it is professional, like maybe you were part of some committee working together for a particular goal, but the relationship is authentic. It's not like, yeah, I am doing this uh, for just my resume bullet point, or I'm doing this just because I'm supposed to do it. It's more like, okay, let's do something interesting, good together, and we have some kind of respect for each other's abilities. I think just building that, and then you will be shocked how much it helps you in the long run. And I got a lot of those things from these experiences early on. Now these are very soft things, right? Like which is why you feel like it's not connected to what you've done previously. But I think that this is what makes a business or an entrepreneur: is your ability to inspire people to want to work with you, your ability to sell and pitch to people, whatever it is. For example, I am confident that tomorrow, if I was asked to sell steel, I would be able to do that. If you ask me to sell a luxury good, I would be able to do that. But and I think that it's an essential skill. Um, Probably will take some time to get some subject matter expertise around it, but that's that's actually the easier part of the problem. The tougher part of the problem is how do you ensure that the other person believes in you. And the same thing comes with customers in the future. Then when you learn marketing, content marketing, for example, is something that you know like, for example, when we did Umang, I was the chairperson of Umang. It continues to be one of the most popular college fests in Bombay. And the every single event that we came out with, it was essentially a content marketing vehicle. Right today, if we would, for example, do a version of The Apprentice as a part of the festival, or we would do a fashion show and ensure that a particular brand was promoted. Like, for example, we promoted a gaming brand using a fashion show. We promoted a really cool accessories brand, via creating an entire uh, zone for people to, hang around and chill as a part of the festival. So some of those, you know, there's an entire concept of emotional branding connected to, so events, content, all of that essentially was all learned back then. And that, I think, now ends up, because whether it is All Tuni or Inside IIM, our vehicle of getting organic participants to be part of the community is because of that skill that was developed back then. So I don't know if it answers your question, uh, but these are few of the things.
Understood. I had also not done sales, until today, Ankit. So I think I resonate with what you're saying, because in the startup where I'm working right now, I have been a part of the sales team only during the days, giving demos, converting those. So I think sales is that one essential skill that everyone should at least experience or know of, because you never know when you're going to start your own fund or your own stuff which you build that, and he might just become one of your guys who's working for you, may become your co-founder. And that's why what we have seen in IIMs also, right? A lot of people from IIMs have started something where both 3 4 people are co-founders, because their wavelengths are matching in such a way. So I think what you're saying is absolutely correct. And moving on to this sales side only, inside IIM is a category leader, right? So in terms of the entire edtech boom which is happening, right? How do you manage to still be one of the category leaders or category leader in this space? Because you guys are doing phenomenally well. And even because of this edtech boom, you guys are not hampered in any way whatsoever. So is it the sales skill and the relationships which you are talking about?
No, I think what differentiates us is that we have a organic community of people who believe in uh, the content that we give them, and they know that we do good by them. So the idea has always been that you first deliver value for people via content, via the community, and then if they feel that these guys are good guys, and that we should put our faith in them, then they will automatically also purchase products, when offered to them, right? So the idea is to build a trust and build the faith. See, essentially, you have to look at this as a 100-year game rather than a 5 or a 10-year game. And we are in no hurry to be uh, the biggest education company on the planet in 2 years, 3 years, right? The idea is that can we be the biggest education slash careers jobs related company in 100 years, and if the answer to that is yes, then I think we are on the right path, because the idea is to keep delivering value, keep creating impact. I think automatically it will translate into positive results for the company and for us. Being nimble, being operationally profitable, these are all important aspects built into the DNA of the company. So I think even if there was no funding available in the future, I don't think that it will matter so much to us. And honestly, I mean, we've been around for 10 years now, so there is no reason why we cannot be around for another 10 and the 10 after that, right? So it's really just about ensuring that you are building a great foundation for people. And for me, what that means is that is Inside IIM or is Altuni a brand that people will trust in 2030? And that is my goal. That it's a brand that people are going to trust even in 2030 and in 2040 and in 2050. And so any decision that we take has to be taken keeping this particular thing in mind. And I think as long as we keep doing that, I think it doesn't matter whatever booms and busts take place in the market. I think we'll still be around, and we'll keep delivering value and we'll keep progressing well. Will we progress at 1,000% growth a year every year? Maybe the answer is no. But like I said, our goal is to be the most trusted brand, not just in 2022, but also in 2030, also in 2040, also in 2050. And once you start taking that lens, I think a lot of your pressures around short-term results goes away, and hence you take decisions which are in the interest of the user and the consumer, and then it means that you continue to stay ahead of the market anyway. And see, the other thing is that we are in a constant learning phase as well. It's not like we have cracked everything either, right? So we are also still building. I continue to say that we are a very small company and we'll always be a small company, and that works perfectly well for us. We'll just keep learning, keep improving. It's just that every passing year we are a better version of ourselves, and that itself is a great achievement according to me. And again, it takes away a lot of pressure on you with respect to what is it that you want to do. And the other thing I want to say is that even today, I mean, I own more than 85% of the company, which kind of makes it very easy to do, which is again, so that's connected to freedom, and then it's connected to not having external pressures to grow at any cost, burn money at any cost, right? So it's essentially down to that. So again, do you want to be the most trusted brand 100 years from now? And if the answer to that is yes, then I think everything else is set up automatically around that.
Agreed. So I think the entire edtech boom or entire startup valuation game is based on, I raise funds to create a good valuation for my company, rather than what you said is I want to create a value or the trust which is following. So do you think this is the difference, and this is where things are going little haywire, that people are running more behind valuations rather than creating value, which you exactly depicted?
I mean, I am no one to comment on anybody and what other people are doing here. I think everybody has their own game and their own fights, and um, you do what philosophy you believe in. I don't want to comment on whether some other philosophy is right or wrong. At the end of the day, I'm sure there are people who followed that and are multi-millionaires or billionaires. So who's to say that I am right and they are wrong, or that they are right and I am wrong? So like I don't want to make that distinction. I think too small an entrepreneur to comment on other people's philosophies or what is it that people want to do. I think everybody to each, you know, their own, and they can just do whatever makes them happy. I know what makes me happy, which is that I want to have the freedom to do what I want to do, and that I'm building a brand that is going to be the most trusted brand in the market 50 years from now, 100 years from now. As long as I get to do that, I honestly don't care what other people are doing. So yeah, that's all I would say, Samyak.
Mhm.
So, Ankit,
Understood.
I would
Understood.
just want to, double click on 2 points that you mentioned towards, the conclusionary phases of the podcast. One is that you very well spoke about, how from an imperial institute, branding and networking is important, right? But in today's day and age, along with that, having those extra skill sets on the side are also, becoming an edge, right? So first of all, like, what is your take to that, and how is, all truly coming into the picture to solve that problem? And secondly, you've been a content marketing person like throughout your life from your experiences, right? So just wanted to understand what is your take on the overall content marketing scene, influencer marketing scene that's, going across the industry as of now.
Yeah. So the first question on all tuning and skills and where we are. See, our thesis is that every Indian requires digital upskilling. The way in which people work today has fundamentally changed. And whether you are a owner of a sari shop in Bhilai, or whether you are a stay-at-home mom who makes bakery items, or whether you are a marketing professional in a large company, or you are somebody who wants to run his or her own startup. I think you just have very different rules today in the game, and those are all connected to the kind of skills that you have. Right now, there is obviously the entire tech area around this, which is around software development and coding. That's not our strong suit, so we kind of stay away from that. But everybody else requires digital upskilling of all sorts, right? Whether how are you going to sell, how is it that you're going to manage your supply, how is it that you're going to build your product. All of these skills are important for any business that exists in the country, for every single professional today. Even if you are a professional, if you are a chartered accountant, if you are somebody who's a lawyer, even you need digital upskilling of all kinds. So Altuni will essentially solve for that, which is that we will upskill everybody in the country so that they are able to participate in this digital economy. And we will obviously be creating uh, programs and content, not just for professionals who are English educated and probably are graduates, but even for people in languages which are other than English, and in regions outside of the metro cities. But they will all be upskilled to take on the world, confidently. And the idea is that anybody who takes up an Altuni program either improves his or her odds of getting a better job, or increases his or her odds of increasing income. Right. So I think that's very clear that, I mean, we want to enhance the general human capital of India and the productivity of this country. And that's essentially what Altuni will do. With respect to your second question on the digital ecosystem and the creator economy, I think it's a fantastic development because it empowers a lot of people to generate income. Um, it also makes it takes away the power from a few advertising agencies, media planners, and channels. Right today, there are individuals who are more powerful than entire corporations and have more influence there. There are people who can put out one tweet and move the markets. There are people who can put up one video and change how the world looks at a particular problem. And that's, I think, immensely powerful. It democratizes access to information, it democratizes access uh, for expression uh, to an audience that you have cultivated and built over time. So I think it is brilliant, whatever development has happened in this particular space. My only worry in that particular space is that the power still lies with a few tech companies around this. So today, a creator is on YouTube or is on Instagram is essentially completely beholden to the algorithm that these companies have, and there could be a change at any point of time in policies, in the algorithm, in the kind of content format that they want to promote. Like a lot of people started building a lot of stuff on IGTV, on Instagram. And then they realized that, okay, now the only thing that Instagram wants to promote is Reels because that's what gives them engagement. So, what about all those guys who put in the effort to build, you know, IGTV? Does that really? So, I think for creators, the challenges are okay, it's about creators have to bet on the platforms of the future as well. Which are the platforms that are going to really be relevant, in the long run? Because you will put in a lot of effort, like you're creating this podcast today. Now you are probably going to hedge your bets by going to put it on Spotify, YouTube, XYZ, other platforms. Um, but tomorrow, if these guys decide to not give any discovery to you, or they decide that you will never get appear on a search result, nobody's ever going to listen to it. So I think for creators, that is a big danger. And there is a large regulatory danger as well. Right now, there are so many people who had millions of followers on TikTok in India. And then there was one decision that the government took because of the India China standoff that, okay, we're going to ban all these apps. Now, what happens to those creators? It's not easy to shift content from one platform to another overnight. So I think while it is immensely powerful, I think there is still a huge monopoly on this power with a few tech companies, which is not very easily visible to people. It's only when an incident takes place you realize how dependent you are. It's almost like, I mean, this analogy may not sound that, but it's like if I was to turn off your electricity today, I think you would essentially not be able to do anything. And it's almost that, like there are certain super highways which are there on the internet, and you have to essentially keep paying a tax to these guys. And also, you have no option if they decide tomorrow that, okay, I'm going to shut this highway. It doesn't matter. If you're stuck on it forever with your car. If they decide to shut that highway. So that, I think, is a big danger in this particular space. Otherwise, fantastic. I hope that more and more creators make money via these platforms, and the power is skewed, which is where I'm a little skeptical.
I think you gave an excellent analogy on how these tech companies are, we are kind of relying on them to kind of promote our content. And it can be anywhere from IGTV to short form content. And now maybe in future, you don't know what will happen to the content space. So yeah, I think that was really insightful. And since we are coming towards the fag end of the conversations, I think this are the two questions which we ask to every guest we have. One is Ankit. Obviously, finance investments is everyone is invested in some way or the other, right? So, what's your definition when I say financial freedom or financial independence? And the second is a couple of book recommendations which have had the most impact on you as a
Uh,
person.
I think the first one is very clear. Financial independence is the ability to reach a stage in your life where you can do whatever you want with your time. That is financial independence. Now, there are two ways to go about it. One is to just make so much money that you don't care two hoots about what you do with your time. And there is also an alternative way, which is that you reduce the number of wants you have in life. And then even a limited amount of money can still be enough for you to do whatever you want in your life. So financial independence does not necessarily mean earning a lot of money always. It's about a state of being where you say that I can do whatever I want with my life. If you are scared about getting fired, or if you are scared about quitting your job, then you are not financially independent. It's just as simple as that, right? Why is it that, I mean, is it because you have taken up, a loan for your car, you've taken a loan for your house, you've taken a loan for your washing machine? You're never going to get out of that spiral, right? Which is why it's not only important that you earn unlimited amount of money and become financially independent. You can also become financially independent by actually reducing the wants that you have. So that is what I think financial independence is. With respect to books, so unfortunately, I have actually not read a lot of books in the last 1 year. One recent book that I read, which I highly recommend to people, is this book called Caesar's Last Breath, which is a book on air and the constituents of air around us. I think it's a fascinating book. It goes into the history of the atmosphere on the planet, and it's a science book. Uh, but I mean, I like to connect a lot of uh, learnings from other disciplines, into my life and my business, etc. And I think philosophically, when you read a book like that, that you realize the power of long-term thinking. You realize the power of um, so every single event that has ever taken place on the planet, there is evidence of that in the atmosphere today, which, just if you think about it, is extraordinary, because one part of it could be 1 millionth of whatever, but it, the remnants of history are there all around you all the time, right? And if you start thinking about it in that way, you completely, I think it aids a lot of long term thinking for someone like me. Also, you realize the contribution of various scientists over the years towards discovery. And to some extent, I look at entrepreneurs also in a similar vein, which is that you find uh, different entrepreneurs in the journey of a particular sector have taken, mankind forward by improving upon what already existed, right? So I think all of us essentially stand on the shoulders of great men and women who've done, awesome work in the past. So that's one recent book that I've read, which I kind of really recommend people to read, which is called Caesar's Last Breath. The other one that has always been a favorite of mine, which is a little cliched, is this book called Zero to One by Peter Thiel. Uh, for me, that book is exciting because it's a very clear articulation of a view of the world, slightly polarizing in parts, but it is so clear in its thinking. And I feel like the world is shaped by people with such kind of clear thinking, or group of people who have such clear thinking. And I think that it's whether you agree with everything in it or not, whether it applies to your market always or necessarily or not. I would encourage every person who's even remotely interested in entrepreneurship to read that particular book for sure. I think it's like a collection of essays that I think initially he had taught at Stanford, then they converted that into a book. But a fantastic book nonetheless. Then there are obviously a lot of other books like *Sapiens*. One other highly underrated book is a book called *The Hard Thing About Hard Things*, uh, and extraordinarily insightful. Would definitely recommend people to read that. And one other book is obviously Phil Knight's, Nike journey, and that book again. I think it's like a page turner, like a really it's an artful way of depicting an entrepreneur's journey. So I think these are some of the books I would recommend. A lot of these I think are have been recommended by other people as well. So there is no, I'm not giving you anything extraordinarily insightful, but I do feel that there is lots to learn from a lot of these books.
Awesome, awesome. I think Ankit, what you said about 0 to 1, I think 0 to 1 and Shoe Dog probably has been mentioned by almost all our guests that we've had till now, if not all. But yeah, I mean, the most interesting one was the climate aspect one that you suggested, because that is a very off the hook sort of a book. But I think just to conclude this entire conversation that we've had, I think if anyone wants to get just one cracked up summary about modern day content marketing and how can you actually scale a business using content marketing, I think today's conversation that we've had with you would be a phenomenal example for that. And again, thank you so much, Ankit, for taking out time on a Sunday weekend and sharing your insights, your journey with us. It's absolutely been a learning experience. And again, given that Samyak and I both are Gujaratis, we could really understand those aspects of freedom, entrepreneurship extremely well. So again, thank you so much, Ankit, for the time.
Yeah, thanks so much. The pleasure was mine. I hope that it is useful for whoever listens to this.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ankit, again.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks, guys.
See you.
See you.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Ankit. See you. Have a good day. Bye.